I lost everything. My home, my family, my peace. And now I'm stuck in a house that isn't mine with people I can't stand. They expect me to care, to help, to forgive. But why should I? My dad made his choice. He threw away everything we had. And now he wants me to play along, to pretend we're a happy family. I won't do it. I don't owe them anything. Not my time, not my sympathy, not my help. But they say I'm cruel, heartless, that I've let my anger destroy me. Maybe they're right. Or maybe I'm just refusing to clean up the mess they made. You tell me, am I the asshole? I remember the exact moment my life shattered. I was 12, sitting at the kitchen table, when my mom walked in with my sister, Lily. Mom looked pale, like she had seen a ghost. She didn't say anything at first, just slid her phone across the table. There on the screen were messages between my dad and another woman. Messages that made it crystal clear he was cheating. At first I didn't get it. My dad was a great dad, always present, always supportive. He took me to my soccer games, helped me with homework, and made pancakes every Saturday. He and my mom laughed a lot. We were happy, or at least I thought we were. Then everything fell apart. My mom confronted him that night. The shouting was deafening. I remember sitting on the stairs with Lily, my stomach twisted in knots. When Dad finally admitted it, I thought he would beg for forgiveness, promise to fix things. Instead, he just stood there, silent. My mom cried, and Lily, who was 15 at the time, was shaking with rage. That was the night I lost my dad. Not because he left, he didn't, but because from that moment on, he wasn't the man I thought he was. It got worse when we found out who he was cheating with. His co-worker, Sarah. She was married too, with 2 kids of her own. Her husband found out around the same time my mom did. Just like us, their family exploded. 2 divorces, 2 broken homes. I wanted to believe my dad regretted it, that he'd try to fix things, but instead he and Sarah stayed together. They acted like their love justified everything, like they hadn't just ripped 2 families apart. Lily and I made a silent agreement that night. We wanted nothing to do with Sarah. And as for Dad, he wasn't the same man anymore. After the divorce, my dad moved in with Sarah almost immediately. It was like he had been waiting for the chance. He didn't take time to process what he had done or how it affected us. He just left and started a new life. At first, Lily and I were numb. We stayed with Mom full-time, which was a relief. The thought of living with Dad and Sarah made me sick. But even though we weren't physically around him, we could feel the distance growing. He used to text every day, used to ask about school, used to care. But after the affair, he got busy. He worked late. He was always in therapy with Sarah, trying to heal. That's what he told us, but we knew the truth. He had chosen them over us. Lily was furious. She stopped talking to him completely. I wasn't as vocal, but I felt the same way. Every time I saw Sarah's name pop up on his phone when we visited, I felt like I was suffocating. Then there were her kids, a boy, Liam, who was 8 at the time, and a little girl, Sophie, who was just 4. I hated being around them. Not because they did anything wrong, but because they were a constant reminder of what my dad had chosen. He treated them like his own, and I couldn't stand it. It didn't help that their real dad, Sarah's ex, cut them off completely. He found out about the affair and walked away. Not because of paternity issues, they were his kids, but because he wanted nothing to do with them or Sarah. My dad tried to bring Lily and me into his new life, but we refused. Every visit felt forced, like he was trying to glue together 2 broken families, but Lily and I weren't interested in being part of it. Eventually, he stopped trying. It was clear where we stood. He had made his choice, and we had made ours. Living with Mom was a relief. After everything that happened, her home became our safe place. She never pressured us to see Dad or pretend everything was okay. She just let us feel what we needed to feel. She was always there for us. When I struggled with my homework, she'd sit with me at the kitchen table helping me through it. When Lily had a rough day, Mom would take her out for ice cream, just the 2 of them. She made sure we knew we were loved, even if Dad had moved on. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. There was no Sarah, no forced conversations, no pretending. just us. Lily and I got even closer. We talked about everything. How much we hated what Dad did, how we wished things could go back to the way they were, how we didn't recognize him anymore. She told me she would never forgive him. At the time, I wasn't sure how I felt. I was angry, but deep down, I missed him. Dad still called sometimes, but I barely answered. The few times I did, it was awkward. He asked how school was, if I needed anything, but it always felt forced, like he was checking a box. I told myself I was done with him. I had Mom, I had Lily. That was enough. For 4 years, I got to live in a house that felt like home. And then, just like that, it was gone. Mom died last year. It was sudden. One day she was here, and the next she wasn't. There was no warning, no time to prepare. Just a phone call telling me my world was over. I don't even remember the days after. Everything blurred together. The funeral, the condolences, people telling me to stay strong. None of it felt real. The only thing I remember clearly is Lily holding my hand the entire time. Then reality hit. I was 16. I had nowhere to go. Lily was already in college, and even though she begged to take me with her, it wasn't an option. Our grandparents tried to get custody, but because they lived in another state, it didn't matter. The court gave me to Dad. I had no choice. Moving in with Dad and Sarah felt like stepping into a nightmare. I hadn't spent more than a few hours in that house before, and now I had to live there. The moment I walked in, I felt like an outsider. The walls were covered in pictures of their family: Dad, Sarah, Liam, Sophie. Like Lily and I had never existed. Sarah tried to act like she cared, like she was so sorry for what I was going through, but I couldn't stand to be near her. Every time she spoke to me, I wanted to scream. Lily didn't even try to hide her feelings. When Sarah suggested she stay for a while, she looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Die." Then she blocked Dad's number and left. She only talks to me now. We call almost every day, and I tell her everything. About how awful it is here, about how I don't belong. She tells me to hang on, that I just have to make it 2 more years, that when I turn 18 I can leave, just like she did. That's the only thing keeping me going. Every day in this house feels like a prison sentence. I don't belong here, and I don't try to pretend I do. Dad keeps acting like we can just fix things, like we can somehow go back to being father and son if I just try. But I don't want to try. I don't want to sit at the dinner table with Sarah and her kids. I don't want to hear about their days. I don't want to be a part of this family he built on top of the one he destroyed. I avoid them as much as I can. After school, I stay out late. I do my homework at the library or hang out at a friend's house just to kill time. When I finally come home, I go straight to my room. I don't talk to Sarah. I don't acknowledge her kids. I don't speak to Dad unless I have to. They don't like it. I know they talk about me when I'm not around. I can hear Sarah whispering to Dad about how distant I am, how I refuse to engage. Sometimes he tries to bring it up, saying things like, "I know this is hard, but we're still your family." And they're not. It got worse when Dad forced me into therapy with them. He thought it would help. I refused to talk. Session after session, I sat there in silence while Sarah pretended to be the concerned stepmom, and Dad kept asking, "Why won't you at least try?" The therapist ended up dropping us. She told Dad therapy wouldn't work if I didn't want it. He was furious. We fought about it, and I told him exactly how I felt. I wasn't hiding behind Mom anymore. I didn't care about his excuses. He chose this life, not me, and as soon as I could, I'd be gone too. After the therapist dropped us, Dad got desperate. He kept pushing, kept trying to make me talk. Every conversation turned into an argument. "You can't just shut down forever," he told me one night. "We need to fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I shot back. "You made your choice. I'm just here because I have no other option." Dad sighed, like he was the victim here. "I'm sorry, okay? I never wanted to hurt you or Lily, but I fell in love." I laughed, actually laughed. "Oh well, if you fell in love, I guess that makes everything fine." That pissed him off. "I know you're angry, but you can't keep punishing me forever." "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm just waiting until I don't have to be here anymore." That shut him up. After that, he backed off a little, but Sarah didn't. She kept trying to talk to me, to be nice. She'd ask how my day was, try to include me in conversations. I ignored her. Every time she spoke to me, all I could think about was my mom. How Sarah helped destroy our family. How, no matter what she did now, I would never forget that. Liam and Sophie mostly stayed out of my way. They were just kids, not my problem. Lily told me I should start planning my escape, saving money, figuring out what I'd do when I turned 18. She hated that I was stuck here, but there was nothing she could do. So I kept my head down, avoided everyone, and counted the days until I could leave. Then Sarah got pregnant, and suddenly, they needed something from me. When Dad and Sarah announced the pregnancy, I didn't react. I didn't congratulate them. I didn't even look up from my phone, I just didn't care. But then things got complicated. Sarah wasn't having a normal pregnancy. She was sick all the time, barely able to keep food down. She had bleeding issues, dizzy spells, and constant hospital visits. Dad started freaking out, and suddenly their problems became my problem. One night he sat me down. "I need your help," he said. "Sarah's not doing well, and I can't be here all the time. I need you to step up." I stared at him. Step up for what? For family. He actually said that with a straight face. She needs someone to help out around the house, watch the kids if something happens. No. He looked stunned, like he hadn't even considered the possibility that I'd say no. "This is serious, okay? She could—" "I don't care." His jaw clenched. "You don't care if she dies?" I shrugged. "She's not my problem." I could see the anger rising in him, but I didn't back down. I wasn't going to be forced into playing happy family just because they needed an extra set of hands. Sarah tried to talk to me about it later, her voice weak, like that would make me feel bad. "I know we've had our differences, but—" I walked away before she could finish. After that, I started coming home even later. I made sure I was never around to be asked for anything. I didn't owe them my time, my energy, or my sympathy. They made their choices. Now they had to live with them. It didn't take long before they got desperate. Sarah's condition kept getting worse. She was in and out of the hospital, barely able to move some days. Dad was stretched thin between work, hospital visits, and taking care of Liam and Sophie. They needed help. My help. Dad cornered me one night when I got home late. "You can't keep doing this," he said, his voice tight. "We need you here." I dropped my bag by the door. "No, you need me here. I never asked to be part of this." He ran a hand down his face, exhausted. "She's really sick, okay? The baby is at risk. I just need you to do small things. Grab her water, make sure the kids have dinner." I cut him off. "Ask her kids for help." "They're too young to handle this alone," he snapped. "You're the oldest. You should care about what happens to her." That was it. That was my breaking point. "I don't care," I said, my voice sharp. "I don't care what happens to her. I don't care about this family. I don't even want to be here." Dad looked like I had slapped him. Sarah, who had been listening from the couch, let out a shaky breath. "You're being cruel," she whispered. "No, you were cruel when you helped destroy my family," I shot back. "And now you expect me to care? You expect me to help you? No. That's not happening." I turned to go to my room, but Dad wasn't done. "You can't just shut off your humanity," he said, his voice rising. "This isn't about the past. This is about a life." I didn't even look at him when I said, "Then take care of it yourself." And I walked away. I barely made it to my room before I heard them explode. Sarah started sobbing. Dad was furious. His voice shook the walls as he yelled about how selfish and heartless I was, how I had no empathy, no decency, how I had let my anger turn me into someone he didn't even recognize. I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, letting it all wash over me. I didn't feel anything. Not guilt, not regret, just exhaustion. A few minutes later, there was a loud knock on my door. I didn't answer, but Dad barged in anyway. His face was red, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You don't have to love her," he snapped. "You don't even have to like her. But you're living in this house, and that means you step up when someone needs you." I finally looked at him. "No, it means I survive here until I can leave." His nostrils flared. "You think you're proving a point? You think you're making some kind of stand?" He let out a bitter laugh. "You're just making yourself look cold and cruel. You're proving Lily right." That got me. I sat up straight. "What? She told me you'd turn out like this," he said, shaking his head. "That you'd let your bitterness eat you alive." I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. "Lily doesn't talk to you." "No. But I know she feeds your anger. I know she tells you to hold on to this grudge forever." I stood up, heart pounding. "You don't know anything about Lily." Dad stepped closer. "Then prove her wrong. Help Sarah. Be better than this." I held his gaze for a long time before I finally spoke. "No." And this time, when I walked away, he didn't follow. I haven't spoken to Dad or Sarah since that night. I go to school, come home late, and stay in my room. They've stopped asking me for help, stopped trying to convince me to care. The house is tense, but at least they leave me alone. Lily says I did the right thing, that I don't owe them anything, that Dad and Sarah created this mess and it's not my job to clean it up. And I agree, most of the time. But sometimes, late at night, I hear Sarah struggling. I hear Dad moving around the house, exhausted, trying to hold everything together. Liam and Sophie don't get what's happening, not really. And even though they're not my problem, I can tell they're scared. I don't regret what I said. I meant every word. I don't care about Sarah. I don't want to be part of this family, and I will leave the second I turn 18. But I can't shake the thought that maybe, I don't know, maybe I went too far. Not for Sarah, not for Dad, but for the kids. They didn't ask for this any more than I did. And even though I don't see them as my siblings, I know what it's like to lose a parent. I know what it's like to have your whole world change overnight. Still, I can't bring myself to care enough to do anything. Dad and Sarah think I'm heartless. Maybe they're right. Maybe I've let my anger turn me into someone cold. Maybe I should have at least pretended to care. Or maybe I'm just standing my ground, refusing to be manipulated into cleaning up their mess. I don't know anymore, so tell me, am I the asshole?